पॉलिसी बाजार पर 1 करोड़ रुपए का टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस केवल 450 रुपए महीने से शुरू। Wow.
So go across now to Professor Stanley Perlman, Professor of Microbiology and Immunology. He's a coronavirus expert as well, joining us from the US at this point. Thank you very much, Professor Perlman, for speaking with us. China, Japan, the US, Brazil, France, just some of the countries that are now seeing a massive surge in COVID cases once again. Is COVID-19 making a comeback, as it were, globally?
Yeah, so I think that this has been the concern all along, that during this period of time there would be an increase in the number of COVID-19 cases. I think that the one that's in China is very similar to the one that's been circulating in every other country in the world. They're all called part of the Omicron variants, and they're all changes from the original one that was found last November in 2021. The big thing about China is that China, because of its initial policies, does not have any pre-existing immunity to the virus. So in other words, most of the people in China have never been infected or vaccinated against the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So this BF7 variant is wreaking havoc in the country because of this problem. In the rest of the world, most people have been vaccinated or infected already. So that this is an important infection, one shouldn't minimize it. But the Omicron variant in general has caused less severe symptoms than the other variants of SARS-CoV-2, of the COVID-19 virus. So I think
Professor Perlman, is that true of the United States right now, that there are a high number of cases, but of less severity?
Yes, I think that's fair to say, that there's many, many cases and they're of less severity, again, because people have been vaccinated and infected already.
What do we know exactly about the BF7 Omicron variant? Is it more infectious? Is it likely to sort of multiply at a much faster rate, even if it's not terribly severe?
I think that that's fair to say, too, that each of these Omicron variants has had an increased ability to transmit from person to person, and without causing as severe disease as we saw earlier on.
Professor Perlman, we've heard from the WHO chief also saying that it's watching the China situation with grave concern. Is there a concern that perhaps we could see the virus mutate further, given that this is a largely unvaccinated or partially vaccinated population, and there is an Omicron variant that is now sort of proliferating widely? What consequences could this have for the rest of the world?
Yeah, so I think that we have to pay attention. So we don't know yet if there's going to be any additional bad consequences, because the virus is very similar to the BA5 variant that we have circulating everywhere in the world already. So whether, because there's so many cases in China, there'll be new mutations, we don't know. So far, there's no evidence that a brand new variant, which would be the biggest concern, because remember, Omicron came out of we don't know where exactly, but it had a huge number of changes. We have not seen that with the mutation, with the virus in China. And I think sequencing, as India is doing, is a very good thing to keep on top of this.
Yes, absolutely. And that advice to continue sequencing all positive cases going out quite strongly from the central government. So we hope, that's going to pay dividends. But Professor Perlman, before we let you go, one last question in terms of sort of precautions to take. Should everyone then go back to a mask mandate, to social distancing? Are we likely to see sort of international travel perhaps come down? What are the likely scenarios in the days ahead?
I think that all the things you said are reasonable and possible. I think masking, certainly in my country, is not going to be mandated, I don't think. And I think the other thing to point out is, at least in a lot of the world, influenza infections and RSV infections, respiratory syncytial virus, are circulating at the same time. So there's all the more reason to be careful and as much as one can avoid contact with people who are sick. I personally avoid large gatherings and wear a mask often. Just for those reasons.
Is that going to be hard to do, though, given that we're sort of in the thick of Christmas festivities and the New Year coming up as well? How are you going to keep people away from each other at this time?
I think by being sensible. So if somebody is coming for a Christmas celebration and is sick, whether it be flu, RSV, flu, or COVID-19 or something else, they don't come. So one just has to be smart about this. If you have an older person, remember the people in a lot of parts of the world who are getting sick with this virus now are people who are over 80 years of age, people who have poor immune systems, and people who have never been vaccinated or infected.
Right.
So the rest of us, with the infection, especially SARS-CoV-2, but all of these are not pleasant infections worth avoiding, but the populations that I just mentioned are really the ones we have to worry about.
And you would say then that vaccination is still a crucial need at this point. Anyone who hasn't had their vaccines or boosters should be doing so immediately.
That's why I still think that's true. We can see that in China, without any vaccination or infection, the country is doing very poorly, and there's likely to be lots of deaths.